The sky above Zerath Prime was not like the skies of Earth. It shimmered in a strange mixture of green and violet hues, swirling with clouds that seemed almost alive. Lightning crackled in patterns that made no sense to any logical mind, illuminating the jagged peaks of mountains that stretched like broken teeth into the swirling clouds. In the valleys below, alien cities sprawled across the rocky surface, towers rising high, glimmering with strange, pulsing lights. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of ionized metals, and a low hum vibrated through the ground itself. It was a world built for conquest and ruled by fear, a planet that had seen centuries of war and had known only one truth: the strong survive, the weak perish. Inside the largest tower, Talok, the warlord of Zerath Prime, stood before a massive viewport that gave him a clear view of the horizon. His body was tall, lean, and covered in armored plates that gleamed even in the dim light. His eyes, large and black, reflected the swirling skies, yet behind them there was an unmistakable tension. Normally, he faced such views with a sense of dominance, of assured control. But today was different. Today, a single human ship had entered their system, and Talok could not shake the uneasy feeling that it was no ordinary vessel. "Report," he demanded, his voice a low rumble that carried authority and threat. A scout officer, smaller and nervous, stepped forward. "Warlord, the ship is human, sir. It arrived without any stealth cloaking or evasive maneuvers. It entered the orbit with direct precision, approaching the central command hub. It carries only a small crew. According to our scans, it appears unarmed." Talok's claws tightened against the railing. "Unarmed? Ha! Pathetic creatures. How could a species so fragile dare enter my domain without even showing caution?" The scout hesitated. "They do not act as though they fear us, sir. Their movements are deliberate, purposeful." Talok's eyes narrowed. He had conquered hundreds of worlds. Entire fleets of alien civilizations had fallen before him. Nothing had ever required such careful consideration. Nothing had ever made his hands shake. Yet now he felt a flutter of unease, a crack in his certainty. "Prepare the defensive squads," he ordered, his voice firm despite the tension creeping through his mind. "I will greet this human myself." Outside, the human ship moved like a shadow through the alien atmosphere. Its hull was sleek and metallic, but it carried no obvious weapons, no aggressive markers. On the surface, the alien cities had mobilized, towers opening to reveal turrets and energy barriers, signaling the readiness of Zerath Prime's forces. Yet the humans did not panic. They did not hesitate. When the ship landed, the ground shook under its weight, sending small stones bouncing across the rocky terrain. From its ramp, Captain Mara Voss stepped down. She was a human, yes, but there was something about her presence that made even seasoned alien soldiers pause. She did not carry massive weapons or wear ornate armor. She wore a practical suit designed for survival, light but reinforced. Her eyes scanned the surroundings calmly, her posture confident, her movements deliberate. For a moment, the soldiers could not move. Their instincts screamed that this was wrong. Creatures so small, so seemingly weak, should not inspire fear. Yet there was something about Mara Voss that made their claws tremble, their antennae quiver. She radiated certainty, a confidence that no brute strength could intimidate. Inside the tower, Talok's hands were no longer steady. He felt it before he could understand it. The arrival of a single human, unarmed and alone, should have been inconsequential. Yet the way Mara moved, the way she carried herself, made him realize something he had never considered. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous in ways that could not be measured by numbers or firepower. "Warlord," the scout said hesitantly, "they have not activated any weapons. Perhaps they mean to parley?" Talok's laughter was low and dark. "Parley? Ha! These creatures do not know the meaning of negotiation. They will die before they even comprehend what they face. But even as he spoke, he felt the strange tightening in his chest. His hands shook as he turned to summon his command council. Mara did not rush. She walked with calm precision through the alien streets, her gaze fixed on the tower where Talak waited. Alien citizens peered from windows, whispers running through the crowds. Some were curious, others terrified. No one understood why a single human had the audacity to enter their world alone. Yet everyone sensed that this was no ordinary intrusion. In the first encounter, Talak's guards approached Mara cautiously, energy weapons ready. But Mara raised her hand slightly, not in surrender, but as a gesture of clarity. She spoke in the universal translation tone, her voice calm and steady. "I am Captain Mara Voss of the human fleet. I come alone. I do not seek war. I seek understanding. And perhaps, in understanding, a chance to prevent it." The aliens hesitated. Their instincts were to attack, yet something in her tone, in her presence, caused them to falter. Talak himself felt the unease ripple through the ranks. Humans had a strange ability to turn fear into courage, to confront the impossible without flinching. Talak's advisors whispered among themselves, their voices low. "Perhaps we should allow parley, Warlord. They are alone, after all. What threat can one human pose?" But Talak could not shake the feeling that grew stronger with each heartbeat. There was power in Mara Voss that no weapon could measure. It was not her strength, nor her technology. It was her mind, her will. Something that had allowed humans to survive in environments that should have destroyed them. Something that had allowed her to stand here, unarmed, unafraid, while his massive army watched in disbelief. "Bring her before me," Talak commanded, his voice low but firm. "Let us see if this human carries the courage of legends or the recklessness of fools." Mara was escorted through the alien corridors, the air humming with energy fields and strange machinery. She observed everything quietly, noting weaknesses, patterns, and points of vulnerability. Her mind worked fast, calculating possibilities, planning for contingencies. She did not flinch as alien guards passed close enough to touch her, nor did she betray the slightest fear. Every movement was calculated, deliberate. When she arrived at Talak's chamber, she saw him for the first time. The warlord was massive, far taller than any human, armored and imposing. His black eyes glinted with suspicion and pride. Yet she did not shrink. She met his gaze steadily, unflinching, and in that moment, the unthinkable happened. Talak's hands shook. It was subtle, barely noticeable at first, but the trembling of his fingers on the railing betrayed the unease he felt. A single human, unarmed, had come to his world, and his instincts screamed that he was facing a force he could not predict. For centuries, he had faced enemies who wielded massive armies, who struck with ferocity, who challenged him openly. Yet none had made him feel this way. None had made him sense the end might be near. Mara spoke, her voice calm but carrying weight. "Warlord Talak, I do not seek your destruction. But I will not leave without clarity. Your world has known conquest, but it does not have to end in death. Let us find a path that spares lives, yours included." Talak's advisors gasped. None had dared speak so directly, and yet Mara's presence carried a quiet authority that demanded attention. She did not threaten, she did not intimidate, yet somehow she commanded respect. The warlord's mind raced. How could such a fragile creature possess such power? How could one human, without armies, without the destructive technologies of his species, make him tremble? He clenched his fists, struggling to maintain composure. He had underestimated the humans, and that realization gnawed at him. Mara continued, her eyes scanning the chamber, noting exits, defenses, and potential traps. Every gesture was precise, intentional. "Warlord," she said softly, "this can end in senseless destruction, or it can end in understanding. The choice is yours. But know this, humans do not yield to fear. We do not surrender to arrogance, and we certainly do not forget." Talok's breathing grew heavy. His hands shook again, and for the first time he understood the danger of underestimating this species. He had ruled worlds, defeated countless enemies, yet a single human, calm and unarmed, had arrived, and he could feel the shift in fate. Something fundamental had changed. The humans had arrived on GalacticPrime, and the warlord realized, with a sinking certainty, that the end of his dominance might be closer than he ever imagined. Outside the chamber, Mara's presence rippled through the city. Aliens watched from towers and streets, unsure whether to flee or stand. There was a tension in the air, a sense that the normal order of power was being challenged. And somewhere deep in her mind, Mara prepared for the trials ahead, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humans were unpredictable, unrelenting, and brilliant in ways the galaxy rarely understood. And on this day, on this strange, alien world, Mara Voss would begin to show why. The city below Talok's tower stirred as Mara moved through its streets. Alien soldiers had been deployed in formations that were designed to intimidate, to project absolute control. They carried energy rifles, sharp-edged blades, and shields that could withstand the heaviest of assaults. Yet their formations wavered as Mara approached, their discipline cracking under the weight of the unknown. One human, alone, unarmed, had made them question centuries of certainty. Mara did not rush. Her steps were steady, measured, precise. She observed the patrols, the towers, and the automated turrets, making mental notes of their range, their reaction times, and their blind spots. Even as the aliens tried to provoke her, to see if she would respond with fear or aggression, she remained calm. Every soldier who passed her felt a strange mixture of unease and respect. Humans were fragile compared to aliens, yet Mara carried the confidence of someone who had survived impossible odds, someone who could see beyond strength and weakness into strategy and foresight. She approached the first energy gate, a massive structure with pulsating barriers designed to crush intruders. It hummed with lethal energy, and a guard stationed at its edge raised a hand, signaling her to stop. Mara's eyes met his, calm but unwavering. She spoke, the translator converting her tone into the alien language, clear and precise. "I am alone," she said. "I do not seek your destruction. I wish only to reach the tower. Step aside, and no harm will come to you." The guard hesitated. His instincts screamed to follow orders, to confront and eliminate the intruder. But something about Mara's presence, the way she radiated certainty and fearlessness, caused him to hesitate. In that brief moment, Mara acted. She dropped to one knee, scanned the mechanism of the barrier with a portable device, and in seconds, the energy field flickered and dimmed. The guard's eyes widened, and Mara stood, walking through the gate with grace. She did not run. She did not panic. She simply moved with purpose, and that purpose unsettled even the most experienced alien soldier. Word of her movement spread through the ranks. Soldiers whispered in disbelief. One commented that she must have some hidden weapon, some technology beyond their understanding. Others argued that she was too fragile, too human, to achieve anything meaningful. But the seed of doubt had already been planted. Humans were unpredictable. Unseen potential lurked behind their calm faces, and that made them dangerous. Mara advanced, moving through streets and alleys, always keeping to shadows, always observing. She avoided unnecessary confrontation, but she also manipulated what few elements she could. Holographic projectors were disabled, automated defenses rerouted, and small squads of alien soldiers were lured into traps where they became stuck or disoriented. She did not kill. She did not destroy. She simply outthought them. The aliens had relied on fear and strength for centuries, but here was a human who relied on intelligence, strategy, and observation. And it was working. In the Warlord's tower, Talak grew increasingly tense. He watched the screens, seeing the movements of this single human unfold like a puzzle that defied logic. His advisors tried to reassure him. "She is alone, my lord," they said. "She cannot succeed. There are too many of us." Talak's hands clenched around the edge of the viewport. "You do not understand," he said quietly, more to himself than to them. "It is not strength that frightens me. It is certainty. She knows where to step, what to see, how to move. She carries purpose in every motion. She is dangerous because she does not fear death, and we cannot predict her." The advisors exchanged worried glances, feeling the tension radiating from their leader. None of them had ever seen Talak's hands shake like this before. None had ever felt the air of uncertainty that Mara brought, and they realized slowly that their confidence might have been misplaced. Meanwhile, Mara reached a key junction, a control hub for the city's energy grid. From here, the alien defenses could be monitored, controlled, and manipulated. She crouched behind a cluster of rocks, surveying the panels and consoles. Her fingers moved quickly over her portable interface, sending signals to disrupt sensors and communications. In minutes, the automated turrets lost synchronization, the energy gates flickered intermittently, and small units of alien soldiers became confused, unable to follow orders properly. It was a small victory, but it mattered. Humans had always understood that war was not about overwhelming force alone. Strategy, timing, and exploiting weaknesses often mattered more than sheer power. Mara knew this. The aliens had strength, but she had ingenuity. Talak's monitors showed the disruptions, and his black eyes widened. He could feel the cracks forming in his control, and he could not suppress the fear that grew within him. He had conquered entire star systems, yet this single human was challenging everything he had built. "Bring her to me," he commanded again. But even as he spoke, he knew it would not be easy. The humans were clever, and Mara Voss was cleverer than most. As Mara advanced further into the city, she encountered more soldiers. Each time she assessed the situation quickly, choosing the path that minimized confrontation while maximizing efficiency. One group of soldiers tried to block her passage, raising their energy weapons. Mara paused, studied their formation, and then acted. Using a combination of light projectors, she created illusions of more humans appearing from different directions. The soldiers, startled and confused, fired in panic, missing her entirely. By the time they realized the trick, she had already moved past, leaving them disoriented and unsure of what had just happened. The humans' ingenuity was becoming evident. The aliens began to whisper among themselves. "How can one human do this?" they asked. "It is impossible." Some began to falter in their confidence, doubting orders and strategies they had followed unquestioningly for decades. Talak could sense the shift. His empire had relied on fear, control, and absolute strength. Yet here was a species that defied all of it. One human had managed to bypass defenses, confuse trained soldiers, and disrupt a city without firing a single lethal shot. And worse, she had done it with calm precision, showing no sign of panic or fear. The warlord's advisors urged him to act, to mobilize troops, to overwhelm the human. But Talak paused. He understood, finally, that conventional force would not work. The human's mind was as sharp as any weapon, and brute force alone could not anticipate the strategies she would employ. He needed to confront her, to understand her, to assess whether negotiation or destruction was the path forward. Meanwhile, Mara reached the lower levels of the tower. The corridors were guarded, but she had already studied the patrol patterns, noting the timing and placement of soldiers. She slipped past them with ease, her movements silent and efficient. She paused briefly at each corner, observing, calculating, ensuring no surprises awaited her. She understood that one misstep could be fatal, yet she moved with confidence. Every step demonstrated a human's ability to adapt, to improvise, to overcome. Talok watched her progress with increasing unease. Every move she made seemed deliberate, purposeful, and calculated. He had faced generals, tacticians, and warlords from countless worlds, yet none had ever inspired the mixture of respect and fear that Mara did. He realized that humans were more than physical beings. They were problem solvers, survivors, and thinkers. Their resilience was unlike anything his species had ever encountered. In the outer courtyard, alien soldiers began to falter. Some withdrew, unsure of what they had seen. Others hesitated, caught between fear and loyalty. Mara had not attacked, had not fired a weapon, yet she had achieved what no assault could. She had sown doubt, confusion, and hesitation. The city that had relied on order and strict hierarchy now experienced chaos, all because of one human who refused to follow the rules of fear. Mara reached the entrance to the inner tower, the final obstacle before reaching Talok. The doors were massive, reinforced with alien alloys and energy fields. Guards patrolled, ready to eliminate any intruder. Yet Mara studied the mechanisms, finding weaknesses in the locks, timing her movements to the patterns of the sentries. With skill and patience, she bypassed the defenses, entering the heart of the tower. Talok felt it immediately. The human had reached his threshold. He could sense her presence, a force that radiated certainty and intelligence. His hands shook again, and this time he could not hide it. His advisors whispered urgently, sensing their leader's fear. They had never seen him like this, never known him to tremble in the face of any adversary. And Mara paused outside the grand chamber. She looked at the massive doors, at the figure waiting within, and took a deep breath. This was no longer just a test of skill or strategy. It was a confrontation of wills. The humans had demonstrated that courage, intellect, and determination could challenge the mightiest of empires. Now, it was time to prove that they could confront the very source of power itself. Inside, Talok prepared. The alien warlord understood one thing clearly. Humans were not like other species. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and unyielding. And this one human, Mara Voss, had proven that even the strongest could tremble before the strength of a mind that refused to surrender. The stage was set. The first human had entered GalacticPrime's heart, and the alien warlord could feel the foundation of his empire beginning to quake. The question was no longer whether she would reach him, she already had, but what she would do once she stood before the being who had ruled countless worlds without mercy. The answer would shape the fate of this planet, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The air inside the tower was thick with energy, humming softly as massive conduits powered the defenses and weapons that lined the walls. Mara moved through the corridors like a shadow, her senses alert to every movement, every sound. She had made it past the outer defenses, disrupted patrols and confused soldiers. Now she was inside the very heart of GalacticPrime's command, where Talok, the warlord, ruled with absolute authority. The closer she came, the heavier the atmosphere became. Energy barriers pulsed along the walls, glowing with a deadly light that could incinerate anything that touched them. But Mara did not hesitate. Every challenge was a puzzle, and she solved each one methodically, using the knowledge she had gathered during her approach. As she progressed, she encountered a group of alien guards who had been sent to intercept her. They were seasoned soldiers, tall and muscular, wielding weapons that could pierce human armor. Mara paused, crouching behind a support beam, her mind racing. She had no desire for a direct fight. It was unnecessary. Humans had survived countless dangers, not by brute force, but by strategy. She observed the soldiers' formation, noted the rhythm of their movements, and then acted. Using a small device she carried, she projected multiple holographic images of herself into the corridor, making it appear that she had split into several identical figures. The soldiers reacted instinctively, firing at the illusions, their shots missing her entirely. While they were distracted, Mara slipped past them, her movements silent, precise, and deliberate. Talok watched the monitors in his chamber as the events unfolded. His black eyes widened in disbelief. The human had reached levels of the tower that were considered inaccessible without a full assault force. She had bypassed multiple security measures, disoriented his troops, and manipulated technology that even his engineers struggled to operate. His claws twitched with frustration, and he felt a strange sensation in his chest, a mixture of awe and fear. He had underestimated humans, and the realization was a bitter one. "Prepare a strike team," he ordered, his voice tight. "Surround her. Do not let her reach the inner chamber." The advisors nodded, but hesitation lingered in their movements. The humans' previous actions had sown doubt and fear among the ranks. Soldiers who had never questioned orders were now uneasy, unsure of whether they could predict or control what this human might do next. Mara moved deeper into the tower, reaching a junction that led directly to the inner chamber. The doors ahead were massive, reinforced with alloys stronger than any human-made metal, and bristling with energy emitters. 2 squads of elite guards were stationed in front, their weapons glowing with lethal potential. Mara's eyes scanned the scene, calculating, analyzing. She did not panic. Her mind worked with the precision of a seasoned tactician. She noted the timing of the guards' movements, the gaps between their patrol cycles, and the blind spots in their positioning. She activated a small device on her wrist that emitted a pulse, temporarily disrupting the guards' communication signals. Confusion rippled through them. Mara used the opportunity to move swiftly, slipping past them and into a narrow maintenance passage that led closer to the chamber. Every step she took was calculated, every movement deliberate. She understood that one mistake could cost her life, but fear was not part of her equation. Humans thrived in situations that would break most others, and Mara was no exception. As she advanced, she noticed something unusual. The energy barriers in the corridors were beginning to flicker. The citywide disruptions she had initiated earlier were creating cascading effects throughout the tower. Systems were overloading, security protocols failing, and automated defenses malfunctioning. Mara smiled slightly, realizing that her actions outside were now aiding her advance inside. The human's ingenuity was not limited to physical skill. It extended to understanding, adapting, and exploiting weaknesses that others overlooked. Talok sensed the shift immediately. His monitors indicated a failure in several key systems within the tower. He could feel the balance of control slipping from his grasp. Every human he had faced before had been predictable, constrained by fear and logic. This human, however, operated beyond expectation, turning chaos into opportunity. Talok's hands shook again as he gripped the edge of the viewport, a rare display of vulnerability. For centuries he had ruled worlds with absolute power. Yet here he was, facing a single human who challenged not only his authority, but his understanding of strength itself. Meanwhile, Mara reached the outer perimeter of the inner chamber. The doors were massive, etched with alien symbols that pulsed with energy. 2 elite guards stepped forward, their eyes narrowing as they assessed the intruder. Mara did not hesitate. She activated another device, sending a low-frequency pulse that interfered with the guards' nervous systems. Their movements slowed, their reactions delayed. Mara moved between them with the grace of someone who had trained for years in environments far more dangerous than this. In moments, she was past them, standing at the threshold of the chamber where Talok awaited. Inside, the warlord felt a surge of tension. He could sense her presence, a force that radiated determination, intelligence, and fearlessness. He knew that conventional force would not work. The human was not just clever. She was relentless, adaptive, and unafraid. His claws tightened, but the trembling remained. This was no ordinary adversary. He realized that humans possessed qualities that could not be measured by strength alone: ingenuity, resilience, and the capacity to turn any situation to their advantage. Mara paused outside the grand chamber, taking a moment to assess her surroundings. She noted the placement of sensors, the timing of energy barriers, and the positions of any remaining guards. Her mind worked like a machine, calculating possibilities, predicting reactions, and preparing contingencies. She understood that the confrontation ahead would not be won through brute force. It would be a test of strategy, wit, and courage. T'Loc stepped forward as the doors opened, his massive frame filling the entrance. His armor gleamed black and silver, reflecting the pulsing lights of the chamber. He regarded Mara with a mixture of suspicion and fascination. His hands still shook slightly, betraying the unease he felt. Mara did not flinch. She met his gaze steadily, unafraid, confident. "You have come far," T'Loc said, his voice deep and resonant. "I underestimated you, human. Many have tried to reach this chamber before you. All failed. Why should I believe you are any different?" Mara's expression remained calm. "Because I do not rely on force alone," she replied. "I rely on understanding, strategy, and the willingness to adapt. You have built your empire on fear and strength. I have come to show that intelligence, courage, and resilience can challenge even the mightiest." T'Loc's advisors watched from the side, whispering among themselves. Some were in awe, others fearful. The human had reached the inner chamber without firing a single shot, without causing mass destruction, yet had achieved what entire armies could not. The alien warlord's power, absolute and unquestioned for centuries, was now being tested by a species he had dismissed as fragile. Mara took a step forward. "I do not wish to destroy you," she continued, "but I will not leave until I understand the choices you make. Your empire, your soldiers, your people, they deserve the chance to survive without senseless destruction. You can choose to change, or you can face consequences you cannot predict." T'Loc's breathing grew heavier. He had never faced such direct confrontation without an immediate threat of violence. Humans had always been seen as fragile, expendable, easily crushed. Yet here was one who challenged him not with weapons but with will, intelligence, and unyielding resolve. The realization struck him with force. Humans were not to be underestimated. They could survive impossible situations, turn weaknesses into advantages, and confront power without fear. The warlord stepped closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over Mara. He had faced generals, kings, and tyrants from countless worlds, yet none had ever commanded such presence, such quiet authority, without resorting to violence. His hands shook again, and he realized that for the first time, he faced an adversary who could break him without raising a claw. Mara's eyes scanned the chamber, noting exits, defensive positions, and potential weaknesses in T'Loc's stance. She was ready for whatever came next, knowing that humans had always relied on creativity, resourcefulness, and courage to overcome seemingly impossible odds. She had survived worlds that should have destroyed her species, and she would not fail here. The tension between them was palpable. The air seemed to thrum with anticipation, a mixture of fear, respect, and uncertainty. T'Loc understood that conventional power alone could not win this encounter. He needed to understand the human, to anticipate her next move, to respond with strategy rather than force. Mara understood the same. She knew that victory would come not from overwhelming strength, but from intelligence, adaptability, and the unshakable human spirit. Outside, Alien soldiers watched, whispers spreading through the ranks. Doubt had taken root. Some questioned their orders, others feared the outcome of a confrontation they could not predict. Humans had always been underestimated, yet this single human had demonstrated abilities that defied expectation. She had infiltrated the heart of GalacticPrime, disrupted defenses, and confronted the warlord himself. Mara took a deep breath, steadying herself for the moment of truth. The confrontation ahead would not be decided by weapons or armies, but by will, intellect, and courage. Humans had faced extinction, hostile environments, and countless adversaries, yet they had endured. Mara embodied that resilience, that ingenuity, that unyielding spirit. And Talok, for all his power, would now learn that humans were not creatures to be conquered. They were forces to be reckoned with. The stage was set. The warlord and the human faced each other, the future of GalacticPrime hanging in the balance. The next moves would determine whether fear and domination would continue, or whether intelligence, courage, and the human spirit would shape a new outcome for the planet. And Mara Voss, alone but unyielding, was ready to prove that even the smallest, seemingly weakest species could challenge the mightiest empire in the galaxy. The chamber was vast, a cathedral of alien technology that hummed with energy. Massive pillars stretched toward the ceiling, carrying conduits that pulsed with light. Walls were lined with monitors, displaying systems, troops, and cities below. Talok stood in the center, massive and armored, his black eyes fixed on Mara. For centuries, he had ruled this world, and countless others, through strength, fear, and unchallenged power. Yet here, in the heart of his empire, a single human confronted him, unarmed, unafraid, and calculated in every motion. His hands shook slightly, betraying the unease he could not suppress. Mara stepped forward, her posture calm, her movements precise. She did not raise a weapon, nor did she display aggression. Yet the aura she carried was undeniable. Every instinct Talok had honed over decades screamed that she was dangerous, not because of her size or physical power, but because of the force of her mind, her will, and her courage. "You have built an empire on fear," Mara said softly, her voice steady. "Your soldiers follow orders without question, your cities are strong, and your defenses are unmatched. But fear is not the same as respect, and power is not the same as wisdom. You have underestimated what humans can endure, what we can achieve, and what we will fight for." Talok's claws clenched, his black eyes narrowing. He had faced countless adversaries, yet none had spoken with such authority without displaying weapons or rage. He tried to speak, to command her to leave or surrender, but the words caught in his throat. For the first time, he sensed the possibility of defeat, not through strength, but through strategy, intellect, and the human spirit. "You think your species can change the fate of worlds?" Talok asked finally, his voice heavy, tinged with disbelief. "You are fragile, unarmed, and alone. One human cannot defeat my empire." Mara's gaze was unwavering. "I am not alone," she said. "I carry the ingenuity, courage, and resilience of my entire species. We survive what should destroy us. We adapt, we endure, and we overcome. And I am here to prove that even the mightiest cannot rely solely on fear and strength when humans are willing to act." Talok's hands trembled visibly as he realized the truth in her words. The systems he had trusted were failing. The soldiers he commanded were uncertain. And a single human had demonstrated abilities that no army could predict. He understood that his empire's foundation, fear, intimidation, and brute force, was being undermined by qualities he could not quantify: intelligence, creativity, and unshakable determination. Mara took another step forward, observing the warlord's posture, noting the weight of his armor, the subtle twitch of his claws, the tension in his shoulders. Every detail was important, every movement a potential opening. She did not seek unnecessary violence, but she was prepared to act decisively if required. The warlord's advisors watched nervously from a distance, their whispers growing louder as the confrontation continued. Many of them had begun to doubt their leader's judgment. The human had reached the inner chamber alone, bypassed defenses, disrupted systems, and challenged T'Loc directly. Fear and uncertainty had begun to spread among the ranks. They had never seen a single human achieve such feats, and they could not deny the unsettling truth. Humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable. T'Loc's voice broke the silence. "Show me, human. Show me how you intend to defeat me without weapons, without armies, without firepower. Prove to me why you are not just another fragile species to be crushed." Mara smiled faintly, understanding the challenge. Humans did not rely on destruction alone. They relied on intellect, strategy, and the ability to turn disadvantage into advantage. She reached into her pack and retrieved a small device, placing it carefully on the floor. A series of holographic projections erupted from the device, showing detailed layouts of the city below, the alien defenses, and the movements of soldiers throughout the planet. T'Loc's eyes widened as he realized the precision and depth of her knowledge. She had anticipated weaknesses, calculated risks, and planned contingencies that even his most skilled advisors could not see. "This is how humans succeed," Mara said. "We find solutions where others see only obstacles. We adapt to situations that seem impossible. And we act with clarity, courage, and persistence. You cannot rely on fear alone to maintain control." T'Loc's hands shook more violently now, his pride and confidence challenged in ways he had never experienced. He had ruled countless worlds, crushed entire civilizations, and faced countless threats. But this human was different. She was small, unarmed, and seemingly fragile. Yet she radiated a force that no weapon could measure. He realized painfully that his empire could crumble not because of strength, but because of a species' capacity to think, endure, and overcome. Suddenly, the room shook as alarms blared through the tower. Mara had initiated a series of calculated disruptions across the city. Energy grids flickered, automated defenses malfunctioned, and small squads of alien soldiers became disoriented and ineffective. Chaos rippled through the ranks, and T'Loc could feel the collapse of his control. His advisors shouted orders, tried to restore systems, but Mara had already anticipated their moves, countering each one with precision. "You cannot control everything," Mara said, her voice steady amidst the chaos. "Humans thrive in the unexpected. We turn challenges into opportunities, and we endure where others fail." T'Loc staggered back slightly, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He had never faced an opponent who could achieve so much without firing a shot, without direct aggression. His empire, vast and powerful, was unraveling not because of external force, but because of the clarity, courage, and ingenuity of a single human. Mara moved closer, observing the warlord's reactions, analyzing his strategy and behavior. She did not attack, did not provoke. Her presence alone was enough to demonstrate the power of human determination. Every instinct T'Loc had relied upon, fear, intimidation, and strength, was now irrelevant. Humans did not respond predictably. They adapted, improvised, and overcame. Outside the chamber, alien soldiers faltered. Some surrendered, recognizing the futility of their situation. Others hesitated, unsure of their orders, confused by the disruptions Mara had orchestrated. The city below was in partial chaos, a testament to the effectiveness of human ingenuity. Mara had proven that one person, acting with intelligence and courage, could challenge an empire built on fear. T'Loc's breathing was heavy. He could feel the end of his dominance approaching. the certainty of his empire's vulnerability laid bare by a species he had underestimated for centuries. Mara had turned every advantage of his strength into a weakness, and now he faced the undeniable truth. Humans were not fragile, expendable creatures. They were resilient, inventive, and capable of feats that defied prediction. Mara took a final step forward, her eyes locking with Talak's. "This is your choice," she said. "You can continue to cling to fear and strength, or you can recognize that humans, and perhaps other species, deserve the chance to live without oppression. The outcome is yours to decide, but know this: underestimating humans is a mistake you will not recover from." For a long moment, the warlord remained silent, his massive frame tense, hands trembling. The advisors watched, uncertain, as their leader faced the consequences of his arrogance. Finally, Talak lowered his claws, stepping back. The weight of realization had settled on him. Humans had defeated him not with weapons, but with intellect, courage, and unyielding resolve. His empire had been shaken to its core, and he knew that for the first time he could not rely on fear to maintain control. Mara's calm presence dominated the room. She had achieved what no army could, what no weapon could. She had demonstrated the strength of the human spirit, the ingenuity of her species, and the power of courage and resilience. Talak's hands, once trembling, now hung loosely at his sides, a symbol of the end of his unquestioned authority. Outside the tower, the city was quieting. Soldiers were surrendering, systems were stabilizing, and the alien population began to understand that the threat had passed, not because of fear or brute force, but because of a single human who had embodied everything their empire had failed to anticipate. Mara had proven that even one individual, acting with clarity, courage, and ingenuity, could change the course of history. She turned to leave the chamber, her mission complete. Talak, though defeated, watched with a mixture of awe and respect. He had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten. Humans were unpredictable, unyielding, and capable of greatness beyond measure. Their strength was not in weapons, nor in armies, but in the mind, the spirit, and the will to endure and overcome. As Mara exited the tower, the sky above ZERATH-Prime seemed brighter. The stormy clouds that had once symbolized fear and domination now reflected a new possibility, that even the smallest, seemingly weakest species could stand against the mightiest empires and prevail. Humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The warlord remained in his chamber, his hands finally still, knowing that his empire had faced a force he could not predict or control. The future of ZERATH-Prime had been rewritten by ingenuity, courage, and determination, and the story of one human's triumph would resonate across the stars as a testament to the indomitable strength of humanity. Mara looked out across the city one last time before boarding her ship. She had proven the truth of the human spirit, that resilience, intelligence, and courage could triumph over even the greatest power. She knew the galaxy would remember this day. Humans had arrived, not as conquerors, but as beings whose will and ingenuity could challenge the impossible and shape the future. And on ZERATH-Prime, the alien warlord finally understood. The hands that once shook in fear had been forced to witness the rise of a species that could not be underestimated, a species that had turned the tide not with weapons, but with the force of their mind and spirit. Humanity had won, and their story was only beginning.